Now let's start with our third lecture. This is basically related to valuation of bonds. Under this topic, we are going to cover the concept of time value of money, bond prices, the key concept related to bond prices or its characteristics, factors influencing bond prices, the two major techniques DCF and YTM. So, when we starting with the concept of time value of money, I think every one of you have heard from your grandparents that at their time they used to get a huge amount of goods at rupee 1 paise or 1 anna, but now at 10 rupees also we are not able to get anything. Why it is so? Because with the passage of time the value of money get deteriorated. At our time when we are children, at that point of time we used to purchase a pencil at rupees 1, but now the pencil costs around 3 to 5 rupees minimum. So it is just because of the passage of time the value of money gets deteriorated. So the time value concept of money is the rupee received today is more valuable than the rupee received tomorrow. So if anyone wants to say that you are getting a return of suppose 10% after 10 years, that is a loss for an individual. If you get a 100 rupees note today and if you get a 100 rupees note after 10 years, what would you prefer? I think you will prefer 100 rupees note today, because this particular 100 rupees is going to give you much benefit as compared to 100 rupees note that you are going to get after 10 years. That is basically the time value of money. So the investor will postpone current consumption only if it earns a future consumption opportunities through the investment. So whenever we are getting 100 rupees after 10 years, we at least required a certain amount of return on this rupee. So if somebody gives us suppose 120 rupees after 10 years, then it will be acceptable to us, but at present situation 100 rupees is acceptable, but after 10 years maybe 120 is also not going to give us any amount of benefit. So with the passage value of the money deteriorates. Whenever an investor is investing some amount, which we already talked about the concept of investment, that whenever a particular person is sacrificing his present consumption need, he needs something in return, and that return is termed as return or interest amount that he will get on the principal amount that he has invested. So individuals generally prefer current consumption to the future consumption. Why it is so? I think it's with the help of this example it is very much clear. If there is inflation in the economy, rupee today will represent more purchasing power than the rupee at the future date, because with the inflation, if we added that inflation rate with this, then again in that situation after 10 years the 100 rupee has no value for the individual person. Interest in the return paid to the owners to part with their money. The interest that the borrowers pay to the lender causes the money to have a future value different from the present value. So suppose the present value of a particular instrument is 100, and because he is parting with that money, and after 5 years if he get 120 rupees, that is going to give a 20 rupees as return. 20 rupees is treated as a return. It can be a dividend form or it can be in a form of interest. So the time value of money make the rupee invested today grow more than the rupee in the future. To quantify this concept, we have two concepts related to it, compounding and discounting. So we can go for future value calculation or we can go for present value calculation. Then in case of future value, we have to calculate present value multiplied by 1 plus interest rate to the power t. T is the time period. And if we want to calculate the present value, we have the future value with us divided by 1 plus interest rate to the power t. So on the basis of this simple calculation, we can calculate the future value and the present value of the investment. But there are other discounting methods available. With the help of present value concept and the future value concept, we can calculate and elaborate this concept in much broader way. But this particular concept is not part of this topic. Now coming to bond prices, the value of bond or any asset, real or financial, is equal to the present value of cash flows expected from it. So when we talking about bond prices, that means whatever future cash inflows a particular investor or bondholder is getting, that is termed as the bond prices. So, bond prices represents the present value of all future cash flows expected from that particular bond, which includes periodic coupon payments and the repayment of the face value at the time of maturity. So, if we talk about the bond prices, suppose if it is a 5-year bond, so for the next 5 years suppose 10% in the interest rate and 1000 in the 1000 is a face value of bond, suppose 5% is a rate of interest or coupon rate and it is going to pay for 5 years, that is 5 years maturity period. In that case 50 rupees we are receiving. So, this 50 rupees is my cash inflow and at the end of the time what I am getting? I am getting 1000 rupees. So, cash inflows or the coupons which I am receiving plus the principal amount at the time of maturity will comprise together and become the bond price. So, price of the bond fluctuates in the market based on the factors like interest rates, credit risks, time to maturity and other market condition if it is listed in the market. Hence, determining the value of bond we require two things. First, the estimate of expected cash flows and the estimate of required rate of return. Now, some basics of bond pricing or on the basis of which we can say the bond prices are decided. The first one is bond price basics, that is bond price is essentially the sum of the present value which we already discussed. So, it is include the coupon rates, that is a regular interest payment maybe annually or semi-annually, and the face value, that is the principal amount at the time of maturity we are receiving. Then bond price and interest rate relationship. There is a inverse relationship between the bond price and the interest rate. Now, when interest rate rises, bond prices fall, and the interest rate fall, bond prices rises. So, we simply say if bond prices decreases, if interest rate increases, bond prices fall, and if interest rate decreases, bond prices increases. Why it is so? This occurs because when market interest rate increase, newly issued bond offer higher yields. So, the interest rate increase means whenever the new bonds are entering into market and if they are giving the better returns or higher return than the existing bonds, in that situation the existing coupon rates will be lower and it becomes less attractive to the investors. As a result, the prices of existing bond decrease to make the yields competitive with the market. So, what happens? Let me explain this with an example. Suppose an existing bond, 1000 rupees bond is giving a 5% interest rate. This is an existing bond. A new bond which is entering into the market is at 1000 rupees and it is providing us 7% interest rate. So, this becomes more attractive to the investor, this becomes less attractive to the investor, and what happened then? If the issuers basically want to sell this bond, what they have to do? They have to issue this bond at a discount so that it becomes attractive to the investor and with comprise of same level of benefit as compared to the new issue bond. Similarly, the situation reverse in case of fall in interest rate. Then yield to maturity and bond pricing. The yield to maturity is the discount rate that equates the bond current price to the present value of all future cash flows. So, it represents the bond's total expected return if it held till the maturity period, whatever returns or coupons we are getting. And in this concept, it is also important that the coupons are reinvested in the market so that the investor get a higher return or return equivalent to the yield to maturity. Then there are certain types of bonds that are issued, that is par value bond, premium bonds and discount bonds. Par value bonds are basically if the bond coupon rate is equal to the current market price, it becomes the par value bond. Premium bonds, if bonds coupon rate is higher than the current interest rate, the bond trades at a premium. For example, if the bond coupon is 7% and in market 5% in rate environment will have a higher price as it pays more interest to the newly issued bonds. Discount bonds, if a bond coupon rate is lower than the market interest rate, it trades at a discount. For example, a bond of a coupon 3% and 5% interest rate environment is prevailing, will have a lower price and it will pay less interest than the new bonds. So, as I mentioned in my example also, in case of when discount bonds are issued, when premium bonds are issued and when par bonds are issued. So, now there are two more concepts associated with this, that is price risk and reinvestment risk. When you talk about interest rate risk, we basically talk about two major components, that is price risk and reinvestment risk. So, what is price risk? It is a risk that market price of the bond will fluctuate due to changes in the prevailing interest rate. So, it is a major component of bond investing as bond prices are inversely related to the interest rate. If bond price rises because fixed income securities with fixed interest rate payments. When interest rates in the broader market change, the value of these payments and the bond's par value changes accordingly. And in this situation, if the price risk is there, that is major component of interest rate risk, we have to either go for discount bonds or premium bonds. So, there are two situations related to price risk. Again, first one is when interest rate rises. When the interest rate rises, what happens? The bond prices falls, which we have discussed earlier too. New bonds are issued with higher yields, making existing bonds with lower coupon rates less attractive to the investor. Suppose 1000 rupees bond is there, it is provided 5% and the new issue providing us 7% interest rate. Which one is good for the investor? Obviously, this one. As a result, investor demands a discount on the existing bonds to compensate the lower yield relative to the bonds. So, in this particular existing bonds, if the issuers want to sell these bonds, they have to issue these bonds at a discount. So, there comes a concept of discount or bonds issued at discount. The second is when interest rate falls. What happened? When if interest rate falls, bond prices increases. Existing bonds with higher coupon rates become more attractive than the newly bonds. So, in this case what happened? Existing bond 1000 rupees, it is at 7% and new bond 1000 rupees face value at 5%. Which one is attractive? Obviously 7% one is attractive. So, what will happen? Investors are willing to pay premium for this higher yielding bonds. Then this particular bonds will be issued at premium. Another important concept, so we have gone through the concept of price risk and now we are talking about the concept of reinvestment risk. Reinvestment risk is basically related to reinvestment of the interest payment or whatever coupons the individual person is getting, they have to reinvest it again in the market so that they get higher yields. Again, there are two things related to at the time they are reinvesting. If the interest rate are lower, in that case they may lose the amount or benefit from it, and if the interest rate is higher, their total yield or the total return on that particular bond will be higher. So, reinvestment of interest payments refer to practice of taking the periodic interest or coupon payment received from an investment and investing those payments back in the market to earn additional returns. When we reinvest interest payments, we are essentially using the cash flow generated from the original investment. So, I have mentioned in my example that 1000 rupees bond, 5% coupon rate. So, we are getting 50 rupees as coupon and we are reinvesting 50 rupees each year in the market. Generate more income which can increase the total return over the life of the security. So, when calculating this yield to maturity or total return on a bond, it is typically assumed that all coupon payments will be reinvested. If it is not reinvested, yield to maturity cannot be achieved. As this assumption is crucial because it impacts the overall return and or we can say the realized return of the investor. If investor is able to reinvest the interest payment at same yield, they can achieve the calculated yield to maturity. Reinvestment rate is lower than the yield to maturity, the realized return will be lower than the expected. As I mentioned, when we are reinvesting our coupon, if the market rates are lower, in that situation we are getting less interest, or it becomes difficult to achieve the yield to maturity, and if the interest rate is higher, we can easily achieve the yield to maturity position. So these are certain basic concepts which are important when we talk about the bond prices or we are doing the bond valuation. Now, what are the factors that influence the bond prices? The first one is interest rate changes, which has already we talked about how it is affecting. There is an inverse relationship between bond prices and interest rate. Next one is credit risk. An increase in credit risk, basically the chances of default if the particular bond is not able to pay the maturity premium. An increase in credit risk typically causes the bond prices to fall, and investor demands a higher yield to compensate the increased risk. Conversely, decrease in credit risk can lead to rise in the bond prices. So again, it is related to if issuer is not able to pay and the buyers are identifying that there is situation that there are chances of credit risk, in that condition they demand higher returns from the issuer. So it is basically the downgrading of credit rating. If AAA rating is issued but later on the rating of the bond is decreased in lower point, in that situation the investors or bondholders will try to get or demand higher returns from the issuer. Then inflation expectation, higher expected inflation lead to higher interest rate, reducing the bond prices, while lower expected inflation reduces the interest rate, increasing the bond prices. Time to maturity, bonds with longer maturity are generally more sensitive to interest rate changes than shorter bond period. Liquidity, high liquid bonds that are basically Government of India bonds generally have slightly lower yields and higher prices, while corporate bonds or municipal corporation bonds or government agencies bonds, they are less liquid as compared to Government of India bonds. Embedded options, bonds with embedded options have prices that are influenced by the value of these options, because if it's callable, then puttable or convertible. In that situation, if it becomes riskier for the borrower, they will demand higher yield from the issuers. It depends upon the interest rate volatility and likelihood of the option being exercised by either the issuer or by the borrower. Now, these are certain assumptions while going for the valuation we have to take care of. The first one is coupon interest rate is fixed for the term of bond. Second, coupon payments are made every year and next coupon payment is receivable exactly a year from now. And third, bond will be redeemed at par on maturity. So these three are the basic assumptions on the basis of which we go for the valuation of bond. So next topic which I am going to cover is valuation of bond, and under this we are focusing on the first technique, that is discounted cash flow method. What is this particular discounted cash flow method comprised of? It is the most common approach of bond valuing, and it involves calculating the present value of bonds future cash flow. What we are doing? We are calculating the present value of bond on the basis of future cash flows, which include periodic coupon payments and bonds face value at maturity. So the DCF method uses the yield to maturity at the discount rate, and this is the formula. P is the price of bond, N is the number of periods, C is the coupon rates which are receiving, R is the rate of interest or discount rate, or we can say yield to maturity, and T is the figure which is going for the number of periods we are capturing it. Then F is the face value, and R again I have already explained, and N is the number of periods. So this is the simple formula of discounted cash flow. On the basis of this, we are going to calculate it. So this method is appropriate for bonds with fixed coupon payments and a single face value repayment at maturity. If there are fluctuating or the interest rate changes after a period of time, we cannot use this particular formula. So hope you have written this particular formula to go for the calculation. Now simply take first example where we are having fixed rate bond. Fixed rate bond means where the rate of interest is fixed. So here the par value is 1000, coupon rate is 6%, it is paid annually, we are getting 60 rupees. So 1000 rupees is the amount, 6%, so we are getting 60 rupees. This is coupon, that means C, and maturity period is 5 years and YTM is 5%. So what we have to do? This is the formula that we have gone through. C divided by 1 plus R to the power T plus F divided by 1 plus R to the power N. So first we are going to calculate the coupons. So present value of coupon is, we have total 5 years, maturity period to 60 divided by 1 plus 0.05, because we have interest rate 5%. So if we divide it by 100, we are getting 1 plus 0.05. So we are adding it for 5 years, 60 divided by first year, second year, third year, fourth year and fifth year. Now you have to calculate the value of this particular equation, and we are getting around 259.92. Now second part is that is the par value. Par value is 1000, that is the F divided by R plus N, 1 plus R to the power N. So N is 5 here. So the present value is present value of coupon plus present value of par. So we have present value, we have calculated this. Now calculate the present value of par, then we are 783.53. If we add these two, we are getting around 1043.45. So I think it is clear. This is the basic formula we are talking about. We have coupon plus 1 plus R to the power T. T till the time period we are calculating. So we have 5 years, so we have to calculate this particular 60 divided by 1.05, 60 divided by 1.05 to the power 2 plus 60 divided by 1.05 to the power 3 plus 60 divided by 1.05 to the power 4 plus 60 divided by 1.05 to the power 5. So we have to calculate it. Just multiply it twice here, thrice here and 4 times and 5 times. So we will get the value and it will divide it by this particular value, we will get this particular equation. So when we added this, present value of coupons is there, present value of par will be calculated and we will get this particular value. Now take another example. Here the face value is $1000, coupon rate is 5%, maturity period is 4 years and yield to maturity is 6%. So the annual coupon payment will be 5%. So 5 into 1000, that means rupees 50. The discount on the coupon and par ATM is 6%. So that is 6 here. The bond P is the bond price, C is the coupon rate, R is the YTM, and F is the face value and N is the number of maturity. Here what we have to do, coupon is 50, so we have 50 divided by 1 point, coupon rate is our 6% to 0.06 plus 50 divided by 1.06 to the power 2 plus 50 divided by 1.06 to the power 3. Similarly, we have calculated for 4 years. Now, this is the par value is 1000. We have to divide it by 1.06. So, we will get this particular value 965.37. This present value of the coupon is less than the face value. Now next, this is the first condition where we are getting fixed amount of interest rate and we have a certain amount of yield to maturity. Now second condition is that zero coupon bond is issued, so we are not getting any type of coupon. So the first portion, that is C divided by 1 plus R to the power T, will be 0. So what we will be focusing on? Only this particular portion, that is F divided by 1 plus R to the power N. So here the face value is 1000, yield to number of years of maturity is 5 years, yield to maturity is 7%. So bond price is denoted by P, we have to calculate it. Face value is 1000, which is available to us. R is a yield to maturity, that is 7%, that becomes 0.07%. N is the number of years, it is mentioned, that is 5 years. So we have all the thing, we have to put 1000 divided by 1 plus R, that is 0.07 to the power N is 5 years. we are going to calculate it and we are getting 712.99 as a present value of the bond. Now third condition, when we are valuing the bond and the interest coupon payments are done semi-annually, what we have to do? In this particular example, the face value of the bond is 1000 rupees, coupon rate is 8% paid semi-annually. Okay, years to maturity is 3 years, yield to maturity is 6% compounded annual, semi-annually. So first what you have to do? You have to identify what is the coupon rate. For coupon rate, what is the par value? Par value is 1000. Annual coupon rate is, what is the annual coupon rate? That is 8%, we have mentioned, divided by 2 because it is paid semi-annually. So we get 40 rupees. Simply if we calculate 1000, like in other cases we have calculated 1000 into 8% equals to 80, divided by 2 we will get 40. But you can use this particular formula so that you have a better understanding of this concept. Now adjust the yield and the number of periods. What we have to do? Yield to maturity is 6%. Again it is compounded semi-annually. So it will be divided by 2, it becomes 0.03. So number of periods, we have 3 years because we are getting semi-annual interest rate, it will be multiplied, we have total 6 periods. Now using the same formula, what we are putting now? The C becomes a semi-annual coupon rate, means 40 rupees. R becomes semi-annual ITM, that is 0.03. N is number of period. Here it is 3, but because the coupons are paid semi-annually, we are going to calculate it as 6. Now putting in the formula, we are getting 40 is the coupon rate divided by 1 plus 0.03 for first year, second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year and sixth year. It is not year but the number of periods. So n number of periods, that is 6, we have put it, and now the face value, that is 1000 divided by 1 plus 0.03 to the power 6. So we get 1053.94 is the present value of the bond. So in this case the bond is trading at a premium, that is it is trading at a 8% premium, which is higher than the yield to maturity. That's why we are getting 1053 rupees. So in this concept we can clearly explain another concept, that is coupon rate is 8% and yield to maturity is 6%. The particular bond is traded at premium and its coupon rate is higher than the yield to maturity, which is giving more benefit to the investor. Now what are the advantages of DCF technique? First is a comprehensive approach because we are including so many things into it. So it is a better approach to explain the concept or value the bonds. Then accounts for time value of money. Discounting principles automatically includes the time value concept in it. Customizable for different bonds, we can calculate it for premium bonds or par value bonds or discount bonds, depending upon the type of bond with us, we can use this particular technique. Objective valuation, because we are calculating it objectively, we are calculating the coupons, we are calculating the principal amount also. So in this case it is much broader concept. Allows sensitivity analysis. If the situation changes and scenarios changes, whatever is the coupon rate or if there is change in YTM, then we can include it in our calculation too. Good for long term bonds. If the bonds are period as higher, in that situation we can use this concept. Disadvantages: requires accurate forecasting. If we have all the things accurately, if the yield to maturity is accurately and precisely calculated, then only we can use this technique. Otherwise it becomes difficult for the investor to use this technique. Again, it is difficult to estimate the discount rate or the ITM I have already mentioned. Assume constant interest rate. That is again a basic problem with this type of technique, because it is assuming that the interest rate is constant. But there are situations when interest rate are fluctuating, or if there is a floating interest rate, in that condition DCF technique becomes much more difficult to evaluate. Doesn't account for market sentiment. It's simple, basically mathematical formula where we are using certain tools and calculating it. So it doesn't consider the market sentiment. Not suitable for complex bonds like puttable, callable or convertible bonds. Ignores liquidity risk, that is also a major issue, and time consuming because its calculation is difficult. It takes lots of time of the investor. The next concept is yield to maturity. What is yield to maturity? In the previous example, you have seen two types of interest rate. One is coupon rate and another is yield to maturity. Every investor, while he is investing in a particular bond, he has to calculate this yield to maturity. But yield to maturity is typical to calculate. If we have gone through internal rate of return that we have calculated in financial management, you know that it becomes very tricky to calculate that IRR. Similar to IRR, YTM is there. It is based upon trial and error concept, and on the basis of that we have to identify what is the probable yield to maturity. So yield to maturity is the interest rate at which the present value of all future cash flows from the bond equals to its current price. It is the internal rate of return of bonds, assuming that bond will be held until maturity and all coupon payments will be reinvested at the same rate. So to first set the bond equal to sum of present value of coupon payments and face value, and then try to solve the yield to maturity and calculate it. So assumptions are there should not be any default, coupon and principal should be paid as per the schedule, investors has to hold the bond till maturity, and all coupon payments should be reinvested immediately at the same interest rate as same as to yield to maturity of the bond. So if in reinvestment risk, we have talked about this, that we have to reinvest the coupon so that we can achieve the yield to maturity. If we don't reinvest the money, in that case the reinvestment risk arises and we are not able to achieve that YTM. Now what is the formula? The same formula like the previous one. C divided by 1 plus r to the power t. T is the number of period for which we have to calculate it. F is the face value, 1 plus r to the power n, n is the number of period. So in this case also we have three conditions. The first condition is fixed rate bond. So since solving for YTM involves trial and error or using financial calculation or spreadsheet tools, here's the idea how we can easily calculate it. So bond price is 950, par value is 1000, coupon rate is 6%, years to maturity is 5%. How are we going to calculate? We have to calculate this R value. So 950 is available with us, that is a bond price. 60 is a coupon we are getting to the power till 5 years we have, and similarly par value is 1000 and 1 plus R we have to calculate to the power n. So in this particular condition we have to put a particular interest rate or R value relevant to this particular. You can try with starting with 5, then 5.5%, then 5.75%, then go to 6, then 6.5, then 6.75, then 7 and then 7.5. If it is coming between this range, this value is coming equivalent or near to 950, at that particular point we'll stop and we'll say this is the yield to maturity. So in this calculation we have to just put the values and try to calculate it. You can start with a higher value also, so it becomes easier for you to calculate, because if we start with 5 it will take lot many calculation. So if we suppose if the coupon rate is 6, obviously we will get a more yield to maturity, we think so. In that situation we can start with 6.5, then go to 6.75, then 7 and then 7.5. So with this 4 calculation we will able to achieve that we are getting 950 or nearer to 950. If it is suppose 949, in this particular range we are going to select that. So this particular 7.2 yield to maturity is approximately giving us 950 as a bond value. So this whole calculation is based upon trial and error. So I have already explained how to do the calculation. It's up to you how you are going to put the values and then start calculating it. Then calculating a zero coupon bond. In case of zero coupon bond, our first portion will become 0 and this is the second portion, that is face value. Here again we are using this particular formula and trying to solve it. Interest rate is not mentioned over here, we have to calculate, and coupon rate is also not mentioned because it is a zero coupon bond. So we can start calculating suppose prevalent interest rate, that is 7%. Nearer to that we are going to get around 500. So here we have used this formula and calculated, and it is coming almost near to 7.18. The third is semi-annual calculation. Here it is mentioned the face par value is 1000, coupon rate is 8%, years to maturity is 6, and bond price is 1050. So first, similarly to the previous DCF technique, we have calculated the semi-annual coupon payment. Now we are going to put it into a formula, or we are using this same formula and try to calculate it. Because our coupon rate is 8%, if it is around 4%, so we are going to calculate it near 7%, and we are taking semi-annual coupon rate as 3.5%, and with the help of trial and error we identified that the calculating p-value is approximately 1054. Here our amount is 1050, it is higher than that. That means we need to have a higher interest rate. When we tried it higher interest rate, that is 3.6, then we are getting 1044. So obviously it is between 3.5 to 3.6. So we are using this 3.6 as a yield to maturity. If we multiplied it by 12, we will getting 7.2. So this is the way or simple technique through which we can calculate the yield to maturity. Now what are the advantages? The first advantage, it is a comprehensive method because it is including market situation into consideration, and we are calculating what will be the yield to maturity. It is not given like DCF technique, so it is more comprehensive. Useful for comparing different bonds. We can use it for discount, puttable bonds, callable bonds, as well as any format of bonds. Predictive measure of bond performance. We are predicting it, that how much it is going to yield after a period of time. So it is predictive in nature, not like the DCF technique where everything is mentioned to us. Yield to maturity is commonly used technique and easy to understand. For fixed rate bonds it becomes easy, but in case of puttable and callable or embedded bonds it becomes little bit tricky. Then the disadvantage, it assumes reinvestment at YTM. It is very necessary or the basic condition when we talk about reinvestment risk also. We assume that whatever the ITM rate we have calculated, our investment should be reinvested at that rate, but in real life situation it may be problematic. Assumes holding to the maturity, that may also a wrong proposition because investor may sell the bond in the market. Ignores credit risk and not accurate for callable bonds. As I already mentioned, we can calculate it, but for callable bonds it is up to the issuer. He can call the bonds at any point of time if the interest rate decreases and they have sufficient fund. So it is not advantageous for that particular bond. Ignores transaction cost. If we are reinvesting, we incurring certain amount of transaction cost, which is ignored in case of YTM. Complicated calculation because it is based on trial and error, and we have to calculate of or we have to go for lots many combination to get the bond price or equivalent to bond price. So it becomes very tricky and complicated. So with this we come to end of this particular topic. Thank you.